Good evening, friends. Come on in. Have a drink, a bite to eat, and settle in by the fire. For tonight, I have quite the story for you. Are you ready? Good. Then let us begin. Now that Valentine's Day and our latest mini-series is over, let us move on to less bittersweet and more terrifying true tales. Tonight, I will be bringing you a story from my own childhood. Now, sit back and listen to Touch Me Not. When I was a child, I lived in a very rural area about 30 minutes from the nearest town. This did not necessarily mean that I was alone in the wilderness. Rather, houses were fairly spread out in the area before you got to the mountains, so you might find clusters of people here and there, and then drive several miles before you spot another. That didn't mean there wasn't anybody there. Just a lot of houses were hidden by trees or were way up on hills and such. The problem with that was you had to be careful in some of those places, because the police might take a long time to find you if you needed help, and some of those places started to become rather shady areas to live in, and I'm not talking about just from the trees. As meth became a more mainstream drug to manufacture, and the opioid crisis hit the region, certain areas became fairly popular spots for drug dealing, break-ins, etc. The area I lived in was on the far end of a widespread community that had quite a few break-ins, so I learned from an early age to keep an eye out on my surroundings and notice if anything or anyone was out of place. Honestly, this is a big reason why a lot of people seem on edge in those backwoods today when they see a license plate that's from another county, or, even rarer, another state. Half the time, these outsiders are up to no good. Now, at the time that this story happened, the mobile home I had lived in had been broken into once and nearly broken into a second time. Thankfully, by this point, my parents had a lot more precautions in place, such as actually locking their doors, having several large and protective dogs, and a multitude of other things. Still, a crafty thief could always be lurking nearby, and since most of the break-ins were perpetrated by someone who knew the family and their goings-on, sometimes their approach would go unnoticed. This was also during the 90s, when you had a lot of media hype over kidnappings. I'm sure some of you remember safety tips being televised like crazy after JonBenet Ramsey's disappearance and death, among other abducted children. The media, of course, made parents and teachers panic, so that just added another reason for my mother's increasing paranoia. So, every morning when I walked out of our trailer into the dark dawn, I was to be careful scanning the area before I headed down the porch steps and out to whichever parent's vehicle I would be riding in that day. Well, one brisk autumn morning, my father was a bit late getting ready for work, so I spent quite a bit of time just sitting on the couch, watching my cat play with this toy that was a combination of a ball of feathers, stuffed mouse, and elastic string. After watching him tug on this toy about 50 times and seeing it go sailing halfway to the ceiling where it was attached, my father finally came marching through the trailer, almost ready to go. He told me to go ahead and head to the truck, that he wouldn't be far behind me. So I did. I pulled on my little teal jacket and backpack and headed out the door while my father headed back into the bathroom. This morning, I didn't look around. I figured I didn't need to. Our porch was 15 feet in the air. We had a gate at the top of the stairs, and 3 of our dogs were the cut of shine if anyone had come within 10 feet of the property. I hadn't heard any barking or had any odd feelings, so why spend a few extra moments scanning the whole porch when it was obvious the gate was latched? It was just silly. Or so I thought. I must have taken about 5 steps from the door when I heard the screen door slam shut, and I felt something tug hard on my shoulder. Now, considering how little I was, I didn't have the whole hit the ground and run and fight like a wildcat conditioning that I developed by the time I was in my teens. No, instead, I did what most kids would do if they felt someone yank them back by the shoulder. I screamed bloody murder. The hand remained, but it didn't move. No hand going over my mouth, no little me being lifted up into the air like the time my father decided to be a jerk and teach me how to be better on my guard in a grocery store by scooping me up like a kidnapper would. Seriously, I was 5 at the time, and my mother had just walked away from the grocery cart while I was looking at apples. Whether he was trying to instill ninja training into a small child, impress my already abnormally paranoid mother by training me, or just because he had no idea of what constituted a proper prank, I do not know. I just know that I wish my tiny legs had hit a soft spot when he pulled that, because he made me cry. So, since my soon-to-be kidnapper was apparently just going to stand there, staring over me menacingly, I summoned my courage and decided to turn and look at him. Only, as I moved, I noticed something green in my peripheral vision. Slowly, I turned my head and noticed that something green was a cord. It was only after turning around entirely that I saw the cord leading into the trailer, where it was straining against the wire and plastic placeholder that was affixed to the ceiling, with my cat looking at me confusedly through the screen door. I had accidentally put my coat on over the cat's toy, and the tug I felt was not a kidnapper hiding in the dark recesses of the porch, but the cord reaching its end. Well, my friends, did you enjoy this story? If so, please like this video and share it with all your friends, co-workers, and neighbors. Even that weird dude falling asleep next to you on the subway. Also, don't forget to hit the subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can catch your next spooky fix the moment it comes out. Thank you all for listening, and I'll see you again real soon.